starting over. Starting from the beginning. Okay. So, we've got 2 good 5s and 2 bad 5s tonight. I've got an objective list and a subjective list of the 5 worst and 5 best units objectively, which I think is very hard to argue against, and then subjectively for me, and what's the difference? So objectively, I mean, subjectively, objectivity, subjectivity, you can look up the definitions, but basically objectivity is just the facts, the math, the science, like the tangible stuff that we can prove, the numbers, how good is it, in how many areas, how good is the gear that they gave you, what was the good value on the cost, like how much did you have to invest in the unit to be able to get, like, EX2, EX3, whatever, so on and so forth. Okay, subjectivity is going to be how good does the unit look, are they from a game you really love, is there nostalgia there, do you like the way their kit is just designed, does it flow naturally, and so on and so forth. So we've got both of those lists, and since I'm known in the community as a bit of a pessimist, guilty, I figured we would try to do the negatives first and the positives second, to try to leave on a high note. Okay, so we're going to talk about the objectivity first, and as you can see, I've labeled my team Goomy Y, Goomy Y, and we're kind of in order. All right, so we're going to start it off with my main man, Id. Now, if it's subjective, I love Id because he's one of the best sprites in the game, if not the best sprite in the game. His animation on his LB is incredible, and all this other stuff. Like, his skills look cool. He looks cool. He looked cool back then in Xenogears. I'm a huge Xenogears fan. Maybe my favorite game. Top 3 for sure. But God, is he fucking terrible. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. He got buffs in JP, but he didn't get them in Global. And nobody knows why, because all it was 3 crowns, I think it was 1 and 2, to upgrade his LB modifier to make him like an A tier DPS, not an S tier DPS. And I don't mean DPS as in like chaining, like he's literally only a finisher. You could have brought him to some DVs if he got his upgrades. He was literally dead on arrival in February when he came out. He was a premium costed 60k pity, and that was the banner where Goomy decided to dip their toe in the water and say, hey, if we remove all fragments from everywhere, let's see if our community will tolerate it. And we fucking didn't. And that's why they were all back. But guess what? Not only was he dead on arrival and absolutely useless from day one, not only is he locked to a single element and can't get out of it, not only did he not get his upgrades to make him decent, but a month later, I'm sorry, not even a month later, Esther came out and invalidated his existence all over again. Holy shit, Id, I love you. You're one of my favorite characters in video game history. Well, combined with Faye, of course. But Gooby hates your guts. They hate Xenogears fans. They detest us. And they made you the absolute, hands down, worst unit of 2022. And let me just say that his gear was decent when he came out, but the problem is his materia only for Xenogears units, which are all not very good, and then his STMR, okay, 70 attack, it has LB fill and LB fill rate, but we already had Lumina close. I mean, this isn't getting equipped to a whole lot of units, man. It just isn't. Couple in the fact that the design of the 3 original gear forms was inherently flawed, because we did not have the 2-handed buff to variants at the start of the year, but we knew we were getting it because JP already had it. And what they could have done is they could have come into all these Xenogear units, they could have scrolled on down to this passive, and they could have said unarmed attack boost 1000%. We're going to go ahead and leave that there. As we understand it, as we've been told by some people who have some insight into the data mining of this game, it is much more difficult for Alim and Gumi to modify an ability that exists already. Apparently, it is much easier to create something new and just add it. Now, this could be completely wrong, but this is the information we have, so let's just assume that it is what exists. All that they have to do is go to this ability. Okay. Copy this, change this to Omega 101, or I don't know, like the name of the 90 engine, the 90 efficiency engine, or whatever. You could even lower this to 100. You could lower LB damage boost to 100, and you could lower attack boost to 500%, but change this to while equipped with a fist weapon. That fixes Graf, Id, and Faye instantly. Instantly, they're fixed, they're future-proof for the variants update, and people can actually use Xenogears units. This was such a good idea that they made sure to do it for the 2 mech units that came later that were FFBE units, and they added the ability to equip the weapon for Faye and Ellie, who came in the second Xenogears banner, but they didn't give them a passive to put their damage on par. Let's just talk about that for a quick second. If I unarm my Satan right now, he gains like 4,000 attack. But he does less damage than when he's wielding a two-handed katana or a two-handed large sword, because the variance happens on the outside of the equation, folks. Remember, when you're doing math and you have all this stuff going on inside of this little bubble here, if you have a times 5 on the outside of the bubble, that times 5 is way more important than the shit that's going on inside. And I don't know how to explain or dumb down math harder, but that's what weapon variance does. That's why a weapon variance two-handed user can have 4,000 less attack on the stat screen than a dual wielder and lap them. Literally double them in damage, okay? That multiplier, if you get a good variance roll, you get the 1.5, you're going to do... If the more hits, the more you lap them. I mean, shit. It's just one of those obvious things, man. And I love Id so much. Look at this sprite. It's beautiful. His LB is incredible looking. But he's premium. We got no fragments. They skipped his upgrades. And he's locked to a single element, only able to finish with a kit that ruins his ability to equip items to try to make up for it. It is easily not only the worst design unit of 2022, but potentially the worst design unit in the entire game. They did my boy dirty. Gumi, you are the biggest jabroni on the planet Earth. At least Alim did him something. Alright, moving on. I can't talk about it anymore. I'm going to get depressed and cry. Cosplay Rain and Cosplay Laswell. Easily the number 2 spot for me, just because Gumi is lazy. We all know that. I don't mean the workers are lazy, of course. The coders are probably overworked and underpaid, and there's not enough of them. That's why Clash launches with bugs. That's why they have to skip all this content. They're not willing to spend the money on paying the programmers that they need, what they deserve. And they're not probably able to have a full staff, a full regiment of people that can handle all this stuff. But my question is, if you're going to keep milking us for revenue and not giving us content, how long do you think that business model is going to work out for? I don't think you're helping yourself by putting in an absolute perfect clone of a unit that's already been dead and out of the meta for over a year with a different costume on, and an absolutely useless TMR, and a mediocre STMR that there's already several different ways to get in the game, and that most units don't even need. Oh, and not only that, but don't let the old copy of the unit interact with the new copy of the unit whatsoever. Don't let your old Rain be able to equip this costume if you have one of these, and vice versa. Don't let your old Rain be able to go into the EX levels of this Rain and vice versa. Don't do any of that. Just make them... Oh, and by the way, when you launch them, put them on a separate banner that people have to pull separately. This unit is the absolute personification of the South Park meme, Steel Underpants, question, 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 profit. I love Final Fantasy 1. I love Final Fantasy 4. Top 5 Final Fantasy mainline games for me. Easy. But the unit does nothing. Neither Laswell nor Rain did anything in their original NV forms for a year before this came out. And they've done nothing since. What the hell, Gooby? What are you doing? Alright. Edgar and Sabin, NV base forms. I love Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI is my favorite mainline game, only to be usurped by Tactics, which some people say is mainline, some people don't. I'm not here to debate that, so I'll just say that Final Fantasy VI is my mainline game, if you exclude Tactics. And Xenogears, we've already been through. One of my top 3 favorite games of all time. Final Fantasy VI is probably also my top 3 favorite games of all time. I would even argue that Final Fantasy VI may be the best video game of all time, period. It is definitely, I think, harder to disprove than prove. But why? Gumi, why? You had 6 of the 14 characters playable in this game already envied. You had Terra and Locke, both decent. You had NVA Edgar, who was okay. NVA Sabin, who was garbage. You had Celeste, good magic tank. Ice Imbue, fairly useful. And then unfortunately you had Cyan, one of my favorite characters. Basically DOA is the first SLB unit. He was always going to be rejected, but he was also very limited, locked to a single element for the most part. SLB units, again, like, they can be really good, but you're never going to be able to reconcile the fact that for an SLB unit to really be amazing, they've got to be at least EX2 in most scenarios, and then in like EX3 in a lot of other scenarios. Definitely puts a strain on the wallet. Like, why wouldn't you just save up for like a pure Brave Shift collab that's really good instead of an SLB unit that's going to be, rotated out in like 3 months. And also at the time when Cyan came out, Earth damage was just not supported well, and now it's the best supported element in the game. So things can change, of course, but I'm just saying there's 8 other characters to NV. Now let's take one away. They did NVA Gao. His kit's whatever, but his gear reward is pretty good. Okay, so there's 7 more characters you could NVA. One's not even in the game. Gogo doesn't even exist in the game. So maybe we NVA Setzer. Setzer's popular. Maybe we NVA Mog. Everybody loves Mog. He's like, the Moogles are in every fucking game, man. People love... Mog could bring back spears as like a fucking thing. And jumpers or something, NVA like Strago or Realm. I mean, both of those units are really good. Why don't we do like a new NV for like Setzer and then like NVA Realm? Realm was amazing. Realm was used in a bunch of old clears. No. What we're going to do is we're going to take the Figaro brothers, who admittedly are very popular. 2 of my favorite characters in the game. I mean, I'm like a Cyan Celeste guy, and then right below that, I'm like Setzer and the Figaro brothers. That's who I like the most. We're going to give them new base NVAs, and I'm like, amazing. This will fix them. This will be great. We'll be able to use them. I don't know why Edgar's a jumper. He's a machinist. The job in Final Fantasy XIV is literally built around Edgar's fucking job in Final Fantasy VI. Why don't we have a bunch of cool different technical abilities that Edgar does? Why doesn't he have air anchor and diffuser and fucking flash and chainsaw that all do cool different things? We're going to make him a jumper, bro. And we're going to make him worse than every jumper that's already in the game. We're going to give him a spear that is literally the exact same spear as Kane's upgraded spear from Final Fantasy IV, except it has 2 super common killers on it that nobody fucking needs because you won't even be using spears in the first place. And we're going to make Sabin even worse than his MVA. Sound like a plan? Gumi, what are you doing? If you're going to bring units across from Alim's side, from the JP side, you don't have to buff them with morale skills, okay? Nobody is saying that you do. But if you're going to try to sell me units from a game that I absolutely love, and they're useless in all content, especially when they're useless in DV and Vision World where they actually could have a chance to shine, you are selling me an NFT, and I don't want that shit no matter how much I love the thing it's from. Add a passive that, like, does something. Edgar and Sabin, not even usable in their DVs. The first DV that comes out after they're out, not even what? You would never take them. Two of arguably the easiest characters to sell to jabronis, and you don't even make them usable in trials, let alone a Dark Visions. Their gear is trash. They don't even have a kick-ass, like, piece of gear you can grab. Anyway, moving on. Cog. Cog is a tough one. I know this is going to piss a lot of people off, but here are the facts. He's a premium unit, 60k. His gear doesn't matter. He's got a good materia, but the problem is that his good materia requires you to equip a specific weapon, so it already limits the amount of units that you can equip it on. Katana's pretty meta. I mean, it's the meta weapon right now. Large sword used to be meta. The problem is the two killers are literally never two killers you will ever see together whatsoever. So the actual flexibility of this materia is useless. There's been one boss that's human and demon at the same time. It's the Mediana, Morgana and COV, right? Is she human and demon, I think? There's literally one enemy ever that's been both of these. I mean, make a copy or two, I guess, but this is effectively invalidated by 12 types. I hate to say it, but it's effectively invalidated by 12 types. Now, we don't have 12 types human yet, but it's coming soon. And when this came out, I don't think we had 12 types demon, but we have it now. And we always knew we were going to get it. We already had 12 types coming, so we knew these were coming. So, like, this is decent, but it's not like, oh, this is a hateful agent or a, I don't know, like a mood maker or something like that's going to be useful for forever. Bonds with Aeons. Like, it's not that, you know. The sword is the exact same stats as Esther's sword, who came out months before, except it has 275 killers on it. Are they Aquan? Bug? Something useful? Not really. Dragon Killer, maybe the second most common killer in the game to human. Maybe a machine is more common than dragon now, but we haven't had a relevant dragon boss in fucking, I don't know, since Anniversary. When Wilk was, you know, who we'll talk about in just a minute, was on the banner, and you know that, and we needed to kill him. The one boss that we got that could have been dragon was Aquan. So there you go. And then Beast Killer, which is like the next most common type. I mean, this just doesn't do it as an STMR. Like, this doesn't put you over the top as a premium unit when the same exact weapon is effectively available on a better premium unit that has more meta capability. Not to mention that other better meta unit, not locked to any element. Cog is locked to light in both forms. And does one form do something different? No, they're both attackers. Does one form have Bolting Strike or or Extreme Nova. Well, this form has Bolting Strike, but it's an AoE attack that doesn't do that much extra because it hits all enemies instead of a single enemy. So don't bring it to any trials. He's just like id. He's here to finish with his Limit Burst. And that's it. And he's locked to light. And the one time we were going to use him, Gumi changed the element on the DV boss. Instead of making them weak to light, and made them weak to fire, because that week there were fire units on banner and they wanted you to buy fire units. So not only did they give him to us underpowered, but the one time we could have used them, they said, nope, stick it up your ass. Now his card is pretty good. Let's talk about the one upside of Knights of Grunscheld, okay? Let's not ignore it. Let's talk about it. Birth of a Champion is a very good card. Okay? This is going to give you... This first part doesn't matter. It's useless. Everybody caps attack for free. It's going to give you 100% LB damage boost. This could free up a material slot depending on what unit you put it on, or it could be absolutely useless. So, not as effective as you would like it to be, but it's here. Killer would be better. It's much easier to get 100% LB boost than it is to get 75 or 100% killer. Especially if it was more than one killer. We have cards with some of them that have killer to 2 different races on it. And it's got 500 attack. Now, you're like, what makes this different? Well, this right here, requirement. Attacker unit. This means that you can equip this on collabs. You can equip it on weird units for, like non-FFBE. Then maybe you're using a weird team where you're bringing like a mainline unit, like a Sephiroth or something. You can equip this on Sephiroth because he has the attacker tag. This is pretty good. Now, when he came out, it was amazingly good. The problem is to get this, he's a premium unit. You need to go to EX3. That means you need to pull on him hard. Or you need to get very lucky with off banners. And we didn't have a daily fragment dungeon for half of the year. I don't even think we got it until after anniversary. So we've only had it for like 5 months out of 12 or whatever, maybe. When did it come? Late July? Middle of July? Maybe even like the first week of August? I don't even remember. This has actually been lapped by other cards. So if you have Titus's card, same situation, EX3. You lose 200 attack, you lose 50% LB damage. But again, 200 flat attack from a card or a weapon ability is not as good as the actual stat itself. Okay, so like the base attack on the weapon is going to do more for you than this attack afterwards in the algorithm that does the damage calculation. Okay, what this card does though is it gives you chain limit boost. So this frees up one of your Magister items to go on somebody else, which is going to make up for this damage. It's about 4 to 5% damage, and then some. And it's got 20 more base attack that goes into your algorithm that kind of almost makes up for the 200 less than... I mean, there's a reason this is 300 and not 500, because this 20 extra attack on here almost makes up for it. And this chain limit boost means that you can equip a Magister's item on someone else. Now, you're not going to get that attack back, but that means that other units can be doing way more damage. And this unit's not giving up almost anything to get there. So, yeah, unfortunately, Cog just... If Cog didn't have that premium price tag, he'd probably be just fine unit. But with the premium price tag, he just doesn't live up. And Wilk, same situation. Wilk here, fantastic looking unit. A really cool and interesting kit design. The problem is it just does not work at all. He uses 2 different weapon types that are not in the meta. He has imperils for them. The first one, let me find it. Here. Axes, 25% garbage. And Fist, 25%. Now he has a 35% Fist imperil in his shift form, which is on par, bog standard, normal as fuck imperil. You know, it's not higher than usual or whatever. He's got some good buffs, but they're all selfish. And his imperils don't do... You know, they do less than standard. So he gets this extra selfish 60%, which is higher than average. You know, you're looking at 45 to 50 here for a lot of the buffing units. So he gets these greedy self-only imperil here, or I'm sorry, buff here. But then he doesn't imperil for 135 or higher, which is the standard. And he doesn't even fill his LB. So if you don't have EX2, you really have to use 3 of these abilities that fill 2 LB, 2000 LB to get his 6000 LB. Because you need to shift on turn 2, and you have to use this skill right here to Fist Imperil. And, you know, it's okay. It's triple bolting strike. It's fine. But his Magnus comes with no charges, similar to Esther, so you have to fill it. And unfortunately, his Magnus is where his only useful ability is, which is his 90% defense break. The problem with Wilk is not just all the things I mentioned, but it's that if you're going to give him the one thing about him that can put him over the top and put him in teams, the 90% defense break is the thing. Because we only have like 3 90% defense breaks. The problem is his 90% defense break is not available on turn 1 when you actually might need it. We have Venera and Lara, both limited time units, both with the ability to 90% defense break on turn 1. Or on demand, whenever you need it, you can do it. You have to set his 90% defense break up in order to use it. Both of those units, incidentally, when Venera came, better damage than Wilk per capita, right? So like when Wilk came, Wilk has no damage. Venera, when she came, had mediocre damage, okay? Lara, great damage and the 90% defense break. Now, Wilk is higher up on this list because his card is better than Cogs. He's not locked to an element, but he does use a much worse weapon type, whichever your choice is. And I hate to have him down here, but again, I could have went to a few different units, but when you add the premium price tag onto him and you couple in the fact that he was on banner with the best unit in the game at the exact same time, Gumi, why did you do this to us? One of the only characters that has come out that I've actually liked that is an FFB original sprite and character. And he's literally sat on the bench since he's come out. So sad. Oh, and also his LB frames are garbage. Throw that in there too. That was depressing. Let's talk about the best units of 2022. And let's first kick it off by doing what everybody knows is coming. And that's getting down on one knee and kissing Queen Sylvie's ring. Sylvie is the best unit in the game. It is not even close in my opinion. I don't even think it's a close objectively. You can come at me with anything you want. I will just tell you to open up her kit and look at it. And tell me what other unit in the game comes close to doing half of what she does. Every other buffing unit in this game does maybe about half of what Sylvie's capable of doing. Let's see. Your crowned Nickel. Does he buff resists that matter? All of them? All 8 of them? No. Does he have killers for like 3 different races? Does he have overkillers for 3 different races? No. Can he imbue more than one element? Nah. Can he imbue more than one element and scale up the LB and ability damage for 3 consecutive turns? Nah. Does he have an Entrust? Mm-mm. Does he have breaks? Does he have party-wide evade? Does he have accuracy boost? Does he have, I don't know, a skill that also is bolting strike so that she can chain when she needs to without having to equip any kind of additional materia or vision card? Does she have, does he have an attack that also refills MP? And does he have the ability to give resist to everything? Does he have the ability to cleanse, stop, and charm and be immune to it himself without any extra gear? Does he have a scalable morale defense buff? No. This is insane. This is the standard bearer for what units are going to be from now until the end of the game. You will never see a unit stronger than Sylvie unless it's like the last 6 months of the game support before they cut it off, okay? You might see a unit on par, but you will not see a unit pushed further than this. This will not happen. 7th anniversary, I predict, quote me right now, 7th anniversary, you will get a support similar to Sylvie with different elements and different killers. Probably not as pushed, Maybe with a better vision card or some gear, maybe with a little bit of extra damage, but maybe not as good a support. That's basically the most you can hope for. But this unit is absolutely insane. You bring her to everything, and not only that, her base attack re-raises your whole party. So if you give her counter materia and you make her provoke, she will counter with re-raise for your whole party. How do you lose? I mean, it might take you 20 turns because your damage might suck, but if you've got an EX2 Sylvie laying around, you can do every single bit of content in this game and you're effectively immune to death. Bow the fuck down to the queen. And while you're at it, thank her for having the best buff in the game for LB while you're down there, okay? Thanks for giving my whole team Tyvus' Spirit for not 2 turns, but 3 turns. Thanks for giving them all max overbuff and buffing morale LB damage. Oh, and by the way, her gear. Hey, I know I'm not a tank, but like, just make me your tank. Give her her own sword. Give her her old unit's TMR in the fucking offhand. Oh, and by the way, her card. Guess what her card does? Fills morale every turn and gives a bunch of resist and defense. There's been clashes where we've taken 2 or 3 Sylvie cards in. Bow down to the queen, baby. All right. The next 2 units we're just going to talk about at the same time in the interest of saving time. Chizuru and 2B. 2B is just a newer version of Chizuru. Lots of good buffs. Not element locked. Both of them have tag team chaining LB finishers. Anytime a unit does a tag damage LB and also finishes at the end of it, it basically enables whatever team you want to just do whatever you want in whatever order you want. You're still going to do a ton of damage. They often invalidate you from having to bring a finisher at all, and then if you do bring a finisher, you can bring whichever finisher you want. You just have to weave that finish in anywhere near when they are going to hit at the end, and you get it done. We're going to talk about the best finisher in the game in a minute. But yeah, I mean, they're both incredible. I don't love Chizuru being trans, but it doesn't really affect her kit. You do everything up front. You shift, you LB to finish, you DPS. It's not a long cooldown. I think it's only 3 turns, so you can get back in. So you can easily, well within most fights long cycles, if you're going to go 4 and 8 or 5 and 10 or whatever, she's going to get it done for you. She brings much needed wind support to an element that's sorely lacking in support. 2B has lightning support. It's not great. She has great light support though, and light needed a little bit of help in the support department, so she brings a lot there. Very easy to max each on killers. They both have a bunch of killers. They get maxed for free. And then a special note for Chizuru as well. Does not need chain cap limit increase. She does it on her own, so she frees up another unit to take Magister equipment or indestructible lights or whatever else you have. Titus card and so on and so forth. So massively, amazingly good units here. They're just too good to not have up at the top. You can bring them to everything, and even though 2B is newer, she will dominate for the next 6 months. You can bet on that. There's no way they're going to release a unit that's better than these two for quite some time. Period. Then we've got Chao. Chao is not used so much anymore, but from when he was released till about 2-3 months ago, he absolutely dominated the meta. He warped the meta around himself, and he's one of those few units that has a really good tanking form and a semi-useful secondary form. And that's really great for tanks, because what happens with tanks is there's a lot of buffs you can put on the secondary form that's not the tank form that will last for literally the entire fight. So you use that secondary form, even if you're not going to use it at all, to start them in that. You load them up with auto buffs, which don't go away, because when you switch, there's a lot of buffs in the game that just are with you. A lot of auto buffs will say like buff this, right? They don't have a turn limit on them. So you just switch over, and that unit now has a full scope of gear, and they have all these auto buffs as well for the rest of the fight, even through raises and dying and all that. So Chow absolutely warped the meta. Has that secondary form, is a true brave shift, fills morale, has an omni cover, casts re-raise himself. You don't need a secondary unit to cast re-raise, and then his counter, filling morale gauge. I mean, he literally destroyed Ka on his own for like almost 6 months. They had to start making fights literally that shut him off, so you couldn't bring him. They even gave you an intrinsic to try to bait you into bringing him back to some of these newer fights where he's like again shut off. But you know, you can't deny a period of dominance, right? Like if we're talking about a 12-month period and a unit was dominant for like 8 of those months, you gotta give him, you know, an MVP vote. It just is. It is what it is. Chow is that good. He's also warped the design of every tank that's come after him to not have all these things together in the same kit, and that's why we're still struggling to find something as good as him for magic or physical that does all of it. You know, Darkness Cecil is pretty close. Ash does okay, but has shitty mitigation. Lilith, physical, shitty mitigation. Runda has the mitigation, doesn't have all the utility, but you know, he's in a lot of teams as well. The bottom line is a tank this good plus Sylvie, and you're tanking everything. So he's just incredible. He was incredible, and we will remember him. You know. And then last, we have the best finisher in the game, which is Golbez. I can't believe a regular mainline unit made it into this. As you can see, we've been all BE from here, but Golbez has those rocks. Okay, he's got the rocks, the school hard rocks. He kicks rocks into people's face. And that's what it is. They didn't nerf him. Don't know why. He's got a great STMR buff that has 2 different options. So if you're fighting Reapers, you can overkill them. And if you're fighting something else, you can break them in lieu of having a real breaker. So, you know, pretty decent. It's the ability he gets from his upgraded STMR that breaks is weavable into his triple cast, which is really good because that means that in any kind of fight that Golbez has to wait, he can go ahead and turn 1, buff himself and do his break. And then if you spend 2 more turns buffing and setting up, he can just sit there and magic boost, which is going to make his rocks hit even harder. He's not going anywhere. He literally has warped the meta this week, which was a really cool thing. They literally put out a Clash boss that you can't bring him to because he's that good. You can bring him to Clash of Wills without any morale abilities, and he will finish that shit. So it is amazing that they left him the way he is. I don't know if they're going to do the same for Exdeath and Carlet, but watch out for Exdeath and Carlet. Those units also have the Meteor dropping Doom. The reason that it's so high up and elevated above the holy casters of the past, like Medina with her ice casting, and like, you know, where you drop all the MP to blast somebody, is well, a lot of those came out before Dazzling Demoness card, which we now have, and also those are locked to an element. Meteor is imbuable. You might see less of Golbez after the next month or 2, just because they might start shipping us more magic fights where the physical type magic damage is not going to work anymore, where you have to actually bring real mages. However, they're not going to invalidate him completely either. He's still going to be the best finisher for physical fights that you're going to want to bring, even if there's no way around the new nerfs that they're going to drop. And yeah, I don't know what else to tell you about Golbez. Like, drop stones on domes. Bet. Like, he's that fucking good. Make 2 or 3 EX3 copies of him if you've got it. You can literally wax 12 types on turn 2 with 2 or even 3 Golbezes, and it is amazing. So happy that like a unit from a game I really like and from any mainline series made it in here. Oh wow, wait, and I didn't even talk about this. Gear flexibility. It's kind of weird because you have to use helms and armor. Well, his STMR covers the armor slot. You have a clash item for his helmet slot, but he's not locked to rods like most casters are. He can use swords, so he has a bunch of good magic swords. He can use that amazingly good 2-handed magic dark vision sword, which is like a huge thing right now. It's very difficult if you only have 10k to decide what to buy, the katana or the sword, because the sword alone on Golbez, it slaps so hard, you know. I mean, he's the boy, he's the man. And you know, let me just throw this in because Golbez I don't have in the. Oh no, I do have Golbez I think in my aesthetics. We'll talk about the aesthetics later, but aesthetically he's just amazing. The upgrades he got for being an MVA to like the graphics and stuff that he does are chef's kiss. All right, so now we have to go back to negative, unfortunately, but this is aesthetically. So from here on out, this is all. I like the way the unit feels, the way the unit plays, or I don't like the way the unit feels. I don't like the way the unit plays. They should have designed this something differently, but like they're not bad. Like none of the units I'm going to talk about now are bad or incredibly good to use in any content necessarily. I'll try to cover that when I cover them, but like just units that like didn't measure up to what I was hoping for on a design perspective. Like maybe the kit was too small, maybe that they missed opportunities. Unit doesn't look good. It's not fun to use, and so on and so forth. Okay, first, the Breaker series. This isn't just Reagan. This is all the generic Breakers. They're not objectively bad because when you bring a Light Breaker, Earth Breaker, and so on TMR to the table, it's never going to be a bad off-banner pull if you don't have one of these already. 85 breaks are good enough to get you through most content, and 130 in peril is decent enough. It's not ideal, but when you can take one of these materia and equip it on any unit that's a breaker, when you have a limited trial or fight that you have to do, so say you got a fight that's like only Final Fantasy VII units are allowed. Well, if there's no good Final Fantasy VII breakers, you're screwed. However, if there's any Final Fantasy VII breakers at all, you can give them one of these materia. There's 4 of the 8 elements available: Earth, Lightning, Light, and Dark. And all of a sudden, you have a decent breaker. So, they have that, but it's such a missed opportunity to have so many units with the exact same kit, and all of it's bad. And you would never bring them to any fight at all. They're just here for the gear. The gear is good enough to make them not the worst in the game, but I just feel like when there's 8 different units, some are from FFBE, some of them are from mainline games, and some of them have incredible gear. Like Lulu is the water version, and she has a really good STMR and an incredible TMR. And I'm just never going to even think about bringing her any content because her kit is a copy-paste with the water element of bad breaks. So much more aesthetically could have been done with all these units. They could have been made interesting, and the kit could have been fleshed out and fun to use and decent, and they just decided not to. Wilk. My poor Wilk. We're back again. This kit doesn't make sense. It's just not well designed. He's miserable to use. Even if he did a majillion damage, people would still hate using him. I wish I could get those 10 overlevel Cactars back. I did it like the day I got them. I don't know why. I should have waited. It was a waste. The kit just doesn't work. It's selfish buffs. He uses weird weapon types. His 90 break is locked behind a Magnus fill. And filling the Magnus is a single action that you can't couple in with other stuff like you can with Esther. Top it off, that filling his Magnus in the shift form is the only real way to use it. I mean, Esther actually has a Magnus in her shift form, in her tank form, that does tanky stuff. There's no Magnus in this base form to even use that does anything useful. Just bad kit design. Bad kit design, completely bad kit design. Such a great looking unit, such a great concept, But they didn't only design him poorly, they made him do no damage, which is his main job. He doesn't imperil hard, which is what you would hope for. He doesn't even imperil his specific weapon type better than anybody else imperils any of the other better weapons available. And his Dispel is only single target. And it's not a perfect Dispel. Kaito came out before him and has better Dispel and a perfect Dispel. Makes me sad, man. Wilk had so much potential, and they just fucked him up. Okay. Sabin and Edgar. Again, much for the same reasons. Not just because they're bad, but because both of their sprites didn't really get, like, anything that distinguishes them from their old NBA sprites. They're basically the same, with a little bit more glowing. They didn't even get an aesthetic upgrade, really. Their kits are just useless. They're not intuitive. I mean, Sabin at level 1 already has all of his abilities. He gets nothing else. He's just a bolting strike generic damage guy and an LB. This is a mainline meme-worthy character. People wear t-shirts from multiple generations with Sabin suplexing the Phantom Train on their fucking chest. And this is all you give to a brand new NV unit? And Gumi doesn't buff any of it? What the fuck, man? This next one's going to pay me greatly. But here's Ellie. Holy Mother Reborn Ellie. I love Xenogears, I really do. But Ellie is so fucking bad. She's not bad because, you know, any real reason. She's bad because her kit doesn't work. They had to buff this Anemia Wave skill to give it a 1500 LB fill so that you could actually play her the way they intended you to play her. She's supposed to fill her LB, use her LB, and then do more stuff, and then fill her LB, and then use her LB again, and so on. The problem is that she's supposed to deal damage in both forms, and she doesn't deal damage in either form. So they buffed her to be able to do what she was supposed to do originally, because functionally she couldn't do it at all. But then they didn't buff the numbers for her to be able to do damage, even though they fixed her functionality. And they left this beautiful sprite and great looking unit dead in the water. Like, she's got wind damage. They let her keep her other 3 elements, but her wind doesn't do any damage. So if you think these other 3 elements do any damage at all, I mean, you're crazy. It's better to just equip a blue wave or a scarlet wave. It's even the same MP cost. This is useless. This is absolutely useless. It's just the regular bolting strike for that element, and it's less than an apparel value than you should be doing. This collab was run twice this year. Xenogears is a massively popular franchise. People love this shit. We don't get to watch speedruns of it because the game is too long. You can hear the Xenogears music playing from my vision card that's on my display right now. Satan is maybe my favorite character in video game history. And this is what we get. I understand you couldn't do anything about the damage of Anemia Wave, but going back to what I said before, from what we know about how to change abilities in the game, it's very difficult to do, especially coming from the Alim to Gumi export process. However, it is supposedly, from what we know, and again, this could all be wrong, but this is just what we know, we've heard, and so on. It is much easier to add an ability than adjust a pre-existing ability. Okay, let's assume that that's the case. You can't modify this. So why not just, like I said before with the mech units, add a passive that rewards them for equipping their weapon type, not even to the same amount as being unarmed, but to a half of that degree, because you'll still get a huge boost out of that. And then why not just add a passive that says, when you cast this buff, increase damage for this ability. Tons of other units have it. They have a buff on a 3 or 4 or 5 turn cooldown that says increased ability damage for all this shit. They have intrinsics that do this for Elena. It can be done. It wasn't done with Ellie. And it should have been. No brainer. And they just dropped that ball. And then last but not least, I have Warrior of Light here. But this again is like the Breakers. This is a placeholder for every tank with bad mitigation. Okay, so we're talking Warrior Light, Lilith, Ashe, like everybody else. Everybody else that came out this year. Chao and Dark Knight Cecil have good mitigation. Runda, for magic, Runda has good mitigation for physical. Runda is literally free. Okay? These units having bad mitigation make every fight where they're missing that 10 or extra 10 or 15% mitigation so much harder. And you have all these units that look amazing, that are fun and cool, literally just invalidated by not having 10 to 15% extra mitigation on their mitigation skills. Why? It's baffling. But here we are. And here are all these useless tanks that we're never going to use because Runda just slots right in, and then if it's a magic cover tank, you got 2 or 3 options, and but there's even magic cover tanks where their mitigation is garbage. I mean, if you're going to design fights for a specific level of mitigation being required, why don't you just give that mitigation to some of your tanks? Not even all. You don't even have to give it to all of them. Just give it to some of them, please. Any of them. But there's a lot of good gear on a lot of these units. Ashe has good gear. She has her leg bracers that are very good. Warrior has the Armor of Light, which is awesome. And he also has his old units had a sword that was upgraded. That's one of the best one-hand defense swords from the Chronicle battle. So these units aren't bad enough to put them in the shit tier objectively, but it's a failure when the rest of their kit is not even acknowledgeable because they can't. None of that matters because they can't mitigate the damage they need to mitigate as a tank, and it's just such an easy fix. It is what it is. All right, let's close it out with my favorite units of 2022. Here we go. Should be of no surprise to anyone, all the units that are up here. Maybe Fry is going to be the hardest to explain, but once I get to it, you'll understand. So first of all, let's just talk about these 2 units. I mean, first of all, you've got Cecil and Golbez, both from Final Fantasy IV, one of my favorite games. They're both usable in most content. Cecil's one of those rare tanks that has a other form that can be useful, or at least can carry all these great buffs. He's got Omni cover in the tank form, and he also looks incredible. Sprites are very well done. He's got a preemptive attack in this main base form here, and it looks way cooler because the fucking Falcon, or not the Falcon, the Enterprise comes in and drops fucking bombs on people as a preemptive attack. I mean, it just looks great, and I love him. There's not much more to say about these 2. They're useful in content. They're from a game I love. They look amazing. Oh yeah, and Golbez. When Golbez SLBs, I think it is, all 4 elements come out and do their elemental attacks. You get like a wave and a tornado and all this shit. I mean, it looks amazing. Beautiful. they both have good gear as well. Good items. Golbez is like we already went over Golbez's STMR, and then Cecil has good armor for both of his forms. This actually gives a darkness attack to an another unit if they need it, and good resists. So like you can even use this as an attacker armor for when you need light or dark resist. 50 resist is really good on a piece of gear. A little below standard for materia, but really great on a gear. And then of course, 100% HP is always going to be amazingly good. And then just bonus killers for no reason. Here you go. All right, great gear. So these next two units, disclaimer, they're not good. Graf is not good. Same problem. We talked about it with Id before. He was decent finisher. Much better than Id. Not dead on arrival at all. I used him to clear some trials. He was imbuable. He did have a little bit of a caveat. He had to run with Roka to be able to finish 2 turns in a row. And to be able to get his finish off on turn 2 instead of turn 3, he had to run with EX3 Roka. But not that big of a deal. Like, Roka's an earth unit. His main element's earth anyway, so if it was something you could do earth damage to, you were going to run her probably anyway at the time. It was really cool the way they worked in all of his like quotes and his ability names and stuff. Like if you look at his kit here, you can see like doth thou desire the power. Like this is divine. Like look the names. They just got the names from the text in the game and put them in. Like that was really cool. Blossom of Fallen Seed. I mean, like this is really neat. I mean, you actually have to use these. You know, you use these abilities to buff him up and then finish. And he was kind of like one of those finishers that was like you could think of like Olive now or like even Golbez now with the Meteor and her LB where you kind of like, or her not her LB but her like 4 skills and then attack. If you're gonna finish, you kind of have to wait. He was kind of similar to that. You had to time in the finish, but it was big damage. But again, he suffers from all the same problems as the mech units do. Citan, same thing. Citan, I just love the character. The sprite looks amazing. The Fenrir mech looks amazingly good. Aesthetically, they're just beautiful, but in game, these are both trash units. I mean, they just don't do what they did. Golbez was good for 3 weeks, and then Esther came out and put out a cigarette on his fucking head, and he's never been used since. And then Citan, again, like he's decent damage, but he's locked to wind. Whereas like we just talked about Jazuru, where like Jazuru's like got all this great wind support that Citan doesn't have, and she's not locked to wind if you don't want to use her to win. She tag chains, and it's Citan's also kind of weird in that he wants to use a katana in his base form and a 2-handed sword or a large sword in his shift form. He can still use a katana though in his shift form, and I'd probably say if you're going to take him to stuff, there's lots of good options for that. But yeah, it's kind of weird. He just again it's not cobbled together all that great, but like his kit's not awful. He does okay damage. He just doesn't like have all the stuff you wish he would have. But I mean, aesthetically, he looks amazing, and I hope that someday they circle back and they buff these Xenogears units. Maybe they'll give Id buffs. Maybe they'll give him his crowns like 3 months later when we can't use him anymore for anything. They did buff Citan as well as Ellie, so his damage didn't. So he wasn't dead on arrival, but they only buffed him enough to where his wind damage is like slightly good enough to like be used in this vision world, and he won't ever be usable again. Go back to Ellie for a second. Like Ellie is little damage she does. If you're strapped for wind magic damage, you can bring her because she has a wind field, which is really good utility. It makes up for her doing 0 damage. But if you were able to bring like 5 or 6 wind mages to a fight or whatever, she's like a wash. She's like breaks even, right? Citan doesn't have any of that support that would put him over the top and make him a really great wind unit. And that's just unfortunate. Like if you combine Citan and Ellie together, you'd have one pretty decent unit. But with them split apart, you have 2 mediocre bad units. Again, Citan's in here because he's better than Ellie, and he's more of my favorite of a character than anything. Like he's really only here because I love the character. And then last but not least, we have Frivia. I love the design of Fry. I could have picked a lot of different characters, but I've always liked Fry. She's cool. Elena's my favorite character that's an original character, and since we didn't get an Elena this year, Fry is the closest thing to Elena that we got. Similar elements, similar style, also a hybrid unit. Well, she's not technically a hybrid unit because she has a mage form and an attack form, but I think that's kind of cool. Roberta, similar thing. I like that. Similar, same elements though, ice and light. Or actually, the Starlight Lane has water and light, which is interesting. But yeah, she kind of started like the field discussion, with her ice field. She was kind of like, oh, hey, fields might be the way that we take that next step up in rung of power. And I like that her field is not like Esther's, where it erases anything else you're trying to do. Um, she's got breaks and stuff. She just doesn't have damage. So like um, if she would have gotten better damage, she might have had a case to be in like the objective top 5. But her damage is just not that great. What's cool though is that she does magic damage, so like you can bring her to a fight where you want to break magic and all that, like the current Clash of Wills, and she's there. So, but yeah, aesthetically I think she looks great. Her card looks awesome. The cool smile card looks pretty cool. Enjoy that. Her actual individual card looks pretty cool. The little like arena and stuff. Like the fencing kind of gimmick is not bad. I wanted to pick a BE unit. Nothing else really spoke to me. I think maybe like Wilk might go here. It would have been really weird to have him in favorite and least favorite, top 5 and bottom 5, aesthetically, but like subjectively. But I just think like Wilk was just such a big miss. His kit is so jank for like the cost that he had to go in both. And I think Fry was like maybe like only 1 or 2 things missing from being like a really really great unit in general. And then also aesthetically, she's got it all. She's got the little sparkles, snow sparkles there. You can see them like the little snow in there, like little snowflakes and stuff. It's really cool. And she's got the nice attacking magic and all that. So yeah, those are my 20 units. There's some overlap, of course, but yeah, it was fun to talk about this kind of thing, and we'll definitely be doing the normal show. What's up, YouTube? This is being recorded live on Twitch for you guys. If you ever want to come and check out the recordings live, just click on that link in the description below, or copy and paste into your browser, whatever you want to do. My schedule and all that is on the Twitch panels. If you scroll on down on the page, you don't have to watch me online. You can go there while I'm offline and scroll on down and see when I go live. There will be a lot of bonus streams in the next month or two, just because I'm going to be stuck at home for a lot of it, just with responsibilities and all that. So you can come by, you can watch me play like Darktide, we'll do some Final Fantasy IV randomizer runs, all kinds of other stuff. And make sure if you're a BE guy or gal or anything in between or outside of that you tune in on Wednesday night when we do a weekly review before maintenance. We talk about what happened that week, what content, units, and other happenings are going on. It's called This Week in Rave Exvius. Recorded live every Wednesday night on the Twitch channel, and then post it hopefully before maintenance is over. But sometimes it's a little tricky, and so really appreciate you guys coming to watch that as well. And yeah, join me on Twitch for all my other random stuff that I'll be doing. So yeah. Don't have anything else for you guys tonight. Hope you have a good holiday and a happy new year, and we'll see you in the next one.